This is my projected Michigan football depth chart for game one. A lot of this could change throughout the season, right? Every single year for this program, hell, for any football program, the depth chart changes from 1 week to 2 weeks to 6 weeks to 10 weeks. But this is where after 8, 9, 10 practices, a full padded scrimmage, that I believe the depth chart shakes out right now, or will be at going into that first game. A lot of things will change, but this is getting the snaps now, and based on what I've been told, this is what it'll look like going into week one. I ask you guys again to follow me on Twitter. It's going to be a big emphasis of focus for us. We're going to do a lot of stuff on YouTube, of course, this year, but we will start doing weekly Twitter Spaces. I'm putting out all the Michigan highlights. Even though we're going to be live during some shows, I'm going to be putting all the highlights, every single touchdown on my Twitter account. So go ahead and follow me on Twitter. As I mentioned, I will follow back the next 10 people to follow me on Twitter. It is at James Yoder. Give me a follow right now. Let's take a look at the starting defensive and edge depth chart for this number 2 ranked Michigan football team. A little bit of a surprise for some people. Right, here are my 4 starters. Braiden, McGregor, and Jaylen Harrell on the outside. Harrell, a returning starter. On the inside, Kris Jenkins started last year with Mazi Smith. And then Mason Graham will kind of fill that inside role with him. Behind those guys, Derrick Moore, Rayshaun, Trap Money Benny, Kenneth Grant, the sophomore who Jim Harbaugh called a gift from the football gods last year. And then Sackmaster himself from Coastal Carolina, Josaiah Stewart, although I do think Michigan with Moore, Stewart, Harrell, and McGregor have 4 starter-level edge guys. But the guy I want to focus on here is Kris Jenkins. Kris Jenkins, in my opinion, is going to have one of the better seasons from a Michigan interior defensive lineman in the past 20 years, right? He only had 2 sacks last year. Quarterback hurries. He was just a mover of men, though, on the interior. Was a big reason that Michigan's had so much success on the edge the last couple of years. Aiden Hutchinson, David Ojabo, Mike Morris, etc., etc. If he has a season that we're expecting, he's in his best shape of life season, right? He is a leader on the field. I expect him to potentially be a captain when Michigan announces him here in the next 2 weeks or so. I think Kris Jenkins, he's not a pure athletic freak, but if he has the type of season that we expect, he could be a top 5 pick. Mazi Smith was a top, first round pick. I think Kris Jenkins is going to have a better season than him, and he's going to test better than Mazi Smith did at the combine. And a few things, maybe not the bench press, but a few of the agility and the jumping and the running, I think he'll test better than Mazi Smith. If he has this kind of season that we expect, top 5 pick, maybe. Top 15, I'm going to put my money. I'm going to stamp that one. I think that is a big time possibility. Let me know what you guys think on Michigan football. Will they win over or under 10.5 games this season? All right, you'd be like, James, come on. That's crazy. The question should only be undefeated or not. The reason I say 10.5 is because that's what BetUS, our sportsbook partner, put as the season over-under for this team. You can go bet that one. If you think Michigan's going to go 12-0, 11-1 even, go bet it with BetUS. Get a 125% deposit bonus when you sign up and make your first deposit. You put in 100, get an extra 125. You put in 200, an extra 250. 300, 475 in bonus money to bet. Put $100 on Michigan winning 11+ games. You get your 100 back. You win $125. That seems like free money to me. Because if Michigan loses 2 games this regular season, bad news. Bad news for this program. Risk $100, put on Michigan winning 11+ over that 10.5 number. You win $125. The link is in the live chat, or go to chatsports.com/GoBlue anytime. Use that promo code GoBlue, 125% deposit bonus. We're talking about the defensive depth chart. I find this interesting. Is Jim Harbaugh, in an era where he has been known to be one of the better defensive head coaches in all of college football, is that the offense actually had better stats in a few different marks last year. Most notably, this offense from Michigan's offense was higher ranked, sixth in the country, than the defense in scoring last year. Michigan giving up 16 points a game to the 40 that they scored. Now, on the other side of the ball, the defense was better at basically everything else for the most part outside of forcing turnovers. Michigan didn't give the turnover ball over that much, but they didn't get a ton of turnovers either. This was the number 6 defense in all of college football last season. I think it has the potential to be one of the top 2 or 3 in all of college football again this season. I think some of the better defenses in college football will be right there in the Big Ten. Iowa, Penn State, even Ohio State. I know, but they've got talent all across the board year 2 with their DC. Then you got Georgia, probably Alabama. They've got 3-4 guys in that team that are going to be first-round picks on that defense. But Michigan should have a top 5 defense in almost all those categories as we see. Make sure, if you guys haven't yet, subscribe to the Michigan Football Report. We are doing weekly live shows. We're going to take you inside fall camp. We're going to have a show every single day between now, August 15th, and you might be watching this maybe August 19th, 20th. We're going to put this segment out later on the week in the channel. We have a new show every single day from now through February 7th. So make sure you guys subscribe today, youtube.com/MichiganTV. Take a look at the depth chart from linebacker. Junior Colson and Mike Barrett. I've got them eking out those starting roles because I think sophomore Jimmy Rolder, who came on at times last year, and then Ernest Hausman started 7 games, had a sack against Michigan last year. He's going to be in there. But much like the defensive end position, I think this is a role in linebacker. They're going to see 4 guys interchange as starters basically the entire season until 1 or 2 of them prove themselves, which they may never do, as being the better of these players. So keep an eye out for that one. I'll talk more about Colson and Mike Barrett here in a second. But let's go back in history. Jabril Peppers, Devin Bush. Which one of these guys has been the best linebacker in Jim Harbaugh's tenure as Michigan's head football coach? If you remember, Jabril Peppers was a Heisman finalist in 2016. Devin Bush, the star of this team in 2017 and 2018, first-team All-American, top 15 pick in the NFL draft. Peppers was also a first-round pick in the NFL draft. But that Heisman thing was based a little bit more on the punt returns and scoring a touchdown or 2 on offense from that wildcat position. Give me a JP for Jabril Peppers. Just focus on linebacker. JP for Peppers or Devin Bush. Give me a DB. These are the guys I've got as the starters last year, and it's basically every position for Michigan. But look at the sheer amount of production Michigan's got coming back at this linebacker position. You've got 173 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 2 interceptions coming back at your starting linebackers. Then you've got a guy, Jimmy Rolder, who a lot of people think could start for 120 to 129 teams in D1, and you've got Ernest Hausman, who was a starter for Nebraska last season. So interesting to think about. This linebacker group is going to be absolutely stacked. Colson, 3rd year. He might go to the NFL for this year. Might be a first-round pick. Mike Barrett come back for a 6th year. And then Jimmy Rolder and Ernest Hausman. Those 2 guys, if Barrett and Colson go pro, which I expect them both to, of course, Rolder and Hausman will be your starters in 2024. And I don't expect much of a drop-off at all from those players. Heading over to the secondary, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting, right? Because a lot of these guys could be gone next year. Of course, we know that Will Johnson will have to return in 2024. Josh Wallace could leave. Mike Sanderson, he'll be gone. Makari Page, Rod Moore, they could potentially both go to the pros, although they could return for 2024. Behind them, I have Zeke Berry as the strong safety. He's making a big push. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if Zeke Berry, going into 2nd year in this Michigan football program, if at some point throughout this season pulls a Makari Page and beats out Page for the starting role, just like Page did to R.J. Moten down the back half of last season. But I want to focus here on Josh Wallace. If Michigan's going to a national championship this year, Josh Wallace has to play at Gemon Green or DJ Turner level. He's got to be able to go up against wide receivers that, frankly, probably smoked him in past years, right? When he was going up against schools from the ACC or the SEC or the Big Ten, bigger schools. UMass's team hasn't been that great, even with him as a starter. He has got to take the coaching from Steve Clinkscale and the Michigan defensive coaching staff and raise his game. If he plays at DJ Turner or Gemon Green levels, which is like maybe the 10th best cornerback in the Big Ten, this Michigan team might be unstoppable. On the other side of the corner, Will Johnson. I expect him to be a first-team All-American this year. I don't know if you guys remember. Pro Football Focus, and they put out some crazy stuff sometimes, but after last season, they did a all-player draft, all classes. You didn't have to be eligible for the draft going into 2024. They had Will Johnson as a top 10 pick after his true freshman year, in which he only started 5 or 6 games. A top 10 pick if he would have been eligible for the draft this year. I see him being a 2-time first-team All-American 2023 and 2024. I think when we look back 2-3 years from now, we might say Will Johnson, only second to Charles Woodson, as the best, not just cornerback, best defender in the history of this program. How about the special teams? James Turner might not be a guy you've even heard of or even paid attention to, but he was the starting kicker for Louisville the last couple of seasons. Pretty good, right? Not perfect, not Jake Moody stats, but 47 of 59 in his career, mostly with the last 2 seasons, along a 50, so okay. He can get some distance on it, making 80% of his field goals. Transferring from Louisville, their starter is now Michigan starter, fills a big-time gap, but I still think it's going to be a drop-off of what Michigan saw on Jake Moody. But by the way, you see Jake Moody the other night, Jack? Woo, woo. Man, he shanked his 2 field goal attempts for the 49ers. Tommy Doman's going to be your punter. He would have been your punter and your kicker if not for Turner transferring over from the portal from Louisville. And I've got Rowan Wilson as your primary kick returner and punt returner, which is kind of scary because could find himself in a situation where he gets injured on one of those. Behind him at kick returner, next to him, I'm going Tyler Morris. Really interested to see if any other younger players, Samaj Morgan or any of the younger wide receivers or running backs emerge. Cole Cabana at either kick returner or punt returner as this season goes on. I want to remind you one more time, I'm going to follow back the next 10 people who follow me on Twitter. It is at James Yoder. Let's make it happen. Follow me on Twitter. I'm going to be tweeting out all season long, and this, the YouTube channel is going to be lit on game day, so my Twitter account will have every single highlight. Help me fight back against the Michigan State, Ohio State trolls who are always my mention. Give me a follow at James Yoder. Let's recap this depth chart. Braiden McGregor, Kris Jenkins, Mason Graham, and Jaylen Harrell are my starters along the defensive line, with Derrick Moore and Josaiah Stewart also on the outside as kind of quasi-starters. But really, they're in the 2 deep, but they are technically the backups. They'll get a ton of go for this team. Rayshaun, Trap Money Benny, and Kenneth Grant. Just basically, this defensive line is set for the next 2 or 3 seasons, no matter what, which of these players sticks around or goes after the 2023 season. Same can be said for linebacker. I got Junior Colson and Mike Barrett. Jimmy Rolder and Ernest Hausman will be all kinds of playing rotation this season. They'll be in there a ton. They'll get a ton of snaps, and they will be your starters, Hausman and Rolder, in the 2024 season, assuming that Junior Colson leaves after this year, his true junior season. Going over to the secondary. This can and probably should be one of the top 2 or 3 secondaries in all of college football. 4 returning starters, Makari Page, Rod Moore, Will Johnson, and then Mike Sainristil. Transfer to your starter from UMass, Josh Wallace coming over. Other guys to think about at that cornerback too, Jaden McBurrows, Amarian Walker, being hurt recently, so we'll see how it shakes out. Zeke Berry might be the 4th or 5th best player in the secondary right now. He's trying to disrupt one of those safety positions, potentially that Makari Page strong safety role, just like Page did to R.J. Moten last year. Stole the job by midseason, and Moten ended up transferring to Florida. There's a lot of people talking that Zeke Berry could do the same thing to Makari Page. Special teams, James Turner, 2-year starter at Louisville. Tommy Doman getting his first run now as Michigan's punter. And then as of right now, and this could change, I've got Rowan Wilson being the main guy as both the kick returner and punt returner, with Tyler Morris, who he himself has been injured recently, as your primary backup, potentially at both positions.